Hello, this is my review for Black Rock, the 2012 film starring Katie Aselton, Lake Bell and Kate Bosworth, I believe. Just before we start, I'd like to say yes, I have a Snow White mug. It's my wife's. I point this out because I noticed in yesterday's review I had a unicorn mug, which probably looked really weird when I'm there talking about these really horrific things in a horror film. But yeah, I have a wife and a daughter, and just by default I have all these weird kind of feminist cups, mugs, plates and all the rest of it. So here's to Snow White. So yeah, Black Rock. This is a film about three women of around about 30, I would say, who were childhood friends, and they decide to go camping on this small island quite close to their hometown. It's a very woodlandy kind of island. We're never told where it is. It doesn't seem very hot or cold, so kind of a neutral weather kind of place. It's big enough to evade killers on, but it's also small enough that you can't evade killers forever, kind of thing. So a very good horror movie sized island, I guess you would say. This film got off to a slow start for me because there's this really awkward cancer joke right at the start of the movie where one of the women sort of pretends to have cancer, seriously pretends to have cancer for about a minute, and then it's all a joke and they're like, oh, you got us there. At that point I was like, oh, is the time to pick another film off Amazon Prime? I was like, but you know what, once I got past that, the rest of this film after that awkward start is just brilliantly scripted, brilliant dialogue. It's just really, really well written, and I'm watching these scenes play out in the sort of calmer waters of the first part of the film, and I'm thinking, this is a brilliant drama film. Forget the horror, this is just really, really good. Some of the scenes are quite long as well. You tell they had to really rehearse some of these scenes, and they've got all this baggage that they've brought on this trip because two of them have had a little spat that's been going on for a few years, and they've never really resolved it. So there's lots of really high quality drama, and I was just enjoying this film as a drama film before any horror kicked in. It was really good. It reminded me of one of my favourite horror films from years ago, The Descent, and that was an all-female sort of group in the film, and two of the characters in that film had an issue with adultery that they brought into this main horror plot, and that influenced events in the later part of the movie. And it's kind of a similar deal here, and that makes it more interesting rather than just putting three, blank characters into the horror situation and depending purely on the horror for the entertainment. So first half an hour of the movie, absolutely brilliant, and then when they're on the island, there's this amazing jump scare. It just comes out of nowhere. I just wasn't prepared for it. It took me totally by surprise. Happened in the most innocuous moment of the most innocuous scene, and that's like the starting gun for Black Rock to sort of move into the horror part of the film. It's like the director just fired a starting gun. Right, we're off. We're into the horror now. And I don't think I'm giving much away by saying that the threat in this film is human. Everything I didn't know what the threat was coming up until when it appeared. I literally picked this movie off the streaming platform from a picture of a woman, a close-up of a woman's face, sort of like, oh, with Black Rock, and I thought, yeah, go on then. But I would have been very surprised, given the grounded feel of the movie up to that point, if it had been anything other than some kind of human threat. It just didn't feel like a supernatural film or a hidden monster film. It did feel like the sort of film they would come across some kind of human terror, and that's exactly what happens. And what makes this actually really creepy is the fact that they sort of know that the guys that they bump into. So the hometown where they grew up must be right next to the island, although it's never specifically said. But they sort of know these guys. They're like, oh, aren't you Thingamajig's brother? Didn't we meet like 2 years ago at, oh yeah, totally. And then another one might be, oh, you used to work at that fishery place for a while? And that makes it really unsettling, rather than just being three random rednecks they come across, or three farmers with shotguns. And at the other end of the spectrum, if it had been three people that they, in their immediate family are like, oh, I fancy you being here, and then they turn out to be psychopaths or something, that maybe wouldn't have been as impressive. But because it's like this middle ground of people that they just sort of know and they've sort of seen around and they think they know, but actually they don't know a thing about them really, I thought that was a really, really well written element to the whole situation. So when the when things really kick off and they're on the run from these guys, it's just inevitable that it's all going to go wrong, and it does. It's just fantastic after that, and I won't reveal any more of the plot past this point. I think I'll just leave it there. But the horror side of the film is just as impressive as the sort of drama-y, dialogue-heavy first half of the film. It's really, really good. Really, there's a lot of tension. I was absolutely enthralled. There's scenes in daylight, scenes at night. There's scenes where the women are sort of separated. There's scenes where they're together, but that's not any better. I'm sort of thinking, well, shouldn't you split up? I mean, if you're all found at the same time, that's going to be bad for everybody. And then there's bits where they have to make tactical decisions. Do they try for a boat? Do they dig in? What's the food situation? Do they try and make weapons? And I'm sitting there trying to go over it in my head with them, trying to think for them, and I just can't take my eyes off the screen for a second during this film. It was really, really exciting. Actresses, like I've already said, very, very good. The only one I recognised out of the three was probably Kate Bosworth, but purely because of Superman Returns, and I didn't even recognise her until I saw her name on the title cards. This was a few years after Superman, so she's sort of progressed from sort of woman in her young 20s to maybe roughly 30. And her hair colour's different. She looks totally different, but recognised her from one film. The other two actresses I don't recognise at all. Never heard of them. I did check their wikis out after the film, and they've got absolutely packed wikis, a whole lifetimes of work. I've just never come across them. I think horror maybe was a sidestep for both of their careers, but one of them, Kate Aselton, who directed the film as well as acted in this, I think she co-wrote the film with her husband or something, but to direct this film and act in it and for it to be this good is a lot of credit to her. The other one, Lake Bell, strange name, but I thought I recognised her during the film. I was really looking forward to sort of looking her up after the film and seeing what she'd been in and what I recognised her from. But it turns out I'd seen her in nothing, so I don't know where I got that idea from, but they're all brilliant, all three women, absolute top-class actresses, and they do brilliantly in this film. The ending's very good. It's got some slight dodgy choreography that's a bit hackneyed and cliched when it comes to the sort of anything that involves fighting, but I can sort of forgive that because it's still really exhilarating getting this final showdown of something you've been absolutely gripped to up until that point. And I was absolutely shocked to find that the film is only 80 minutes. 80 minutes, it felt like longer than that. I felt like I'd been through the mill by the time this film was finished, and I just cannot believe all that good stuff was packed into 80 minutes. It was really kind of it just took me by surprise. So yeah, on the whole, this film is really, really good. And even when the action really gets going, there's still little pockets of the drama from earlier. You know, that we don't just forget about all this stuff that we've been talking about between these characters earlier on in the movie. That sort of keeps coming back up. And there's one amazing scene where two of the characters are just shivering, and they're sort of shivering. They're really cold, and they're sort of figuring things out from their problems that they had coming into this movie, and it's just really, really good acting, really good. So on the whole, I think I'm going to give this film 4.5 bloody dripping axes out of 5, which is the highest rating I've given to any film since I started doing these reviews, and the only reason it stops short of the full 5, which would make it a masterpiece, is just a few little niggly bits like the cancer joke. The fight choreography is not brilliant, and there's one or two moments that maybe don't ring true that you can forgive because it's such an exciting film. And and there's one moment where they make this daft tactical decision where I was like, no, the sort of thing that horror movies are known for being bad at, when the good characters make bad tactical decisions. There's one of those in this film that was really bad, and it was even mentioned in at least one of the reviews for the film that I read afterwards. So a few little nitpicky things that stop it getting the full 5, but still 4.5, and that is extremely good. It's a hidden gem as far as I'm concerned. So Black Rock 2012, I found it on Amazon Prime on the list of horror films, and fully advise you to go and watch this one. It's really, really good. Okay, cheerio.